There you are. Good morning to you. Are you well? I hope this works now. This is very unprofessional to be saying things like, I hope this works now. But I think it is going to work. And for the final time, I'm going to give a big shout out to Graham Booth and to Hayden Hewitt for their help. Welcome to the newspaper review. It is the morning of Thursday, May 30th, 2019. And as I've mentioned previously, every weekday morning, Monday to Friday, I'm going to have a half an hour chat here with you, looking through the UK's daily newspapers. All right? But before I do that, I'm going to have to multitask. I've got a tablet here, and I've got a phone here. And the reason I have the phone is so I can say hello to some of you. This is bizarre. So let me say hello to a few of you very quickly. Stuart Frampton, how you doing? Pyramid 7, Alex Dunn, Chris Brown, Jason Williamson, Jared Bolton, William Gibson, Neil Gardner, Janie Brooks, Tanya Bauer, and Gary Donison, who says reviewing the papers just allows the mainstream to control the narrative. Pull your head out of your arsehole, Gary. It's got nothing to do with that. I talk about things on my radio show that would never be spoken about or written about in the UK press. The newspaper review is just a chance to have a look at what they are saying. All right, that's all it is. Don't have a cow man. Did I say Janie already? John and Sarah Stott, good morning. Jennifer Garcia, Alex, I mentioned Alex, Darren, Venus Rising, Rosario, Car, Dinny, and Unicorn Squad. That's John in Birkenhead. How you doing, John? Right, I'll come back to these in a few minutes. Right, so I'm going to have a look at the newspapers and I'll be able to show you the newspapers as we go along. There's a glare in my glasses, is there? Shall I get rid of my glasses? Let's get rid of the glasses. You don't see this on regular television, do you? No. Shall we start with the Metro, shall we? Let's have a look at what's on the front page of the Metro. Boris in the dock over Brexit lies. There you go. Boris in the dock over Brexit lies. The lying bastard. What's this about? Talked about this on the radio show yesterday. We just do that a bit there, yeah. This is about the £350 million claim made by Brexiteers before the referendum on June 23rd, 2016, when 17.4 million people voted to leave, and yet we're still there 3 years later. So this is the claim. The claim was that, well, we send £350 million a week to Brussels. Why don't we keep it for ourselves? Not a bad idea. Keep it for ourselves and we can spend it on the NHS. I never believed that Boris Johnson or Michael Gove or Nigel Farage or any of the Brexiteers at the time had any real intention of saving the NHS with that extra £350 million a week. Why? Because those bastards want to privatise the NHS, ultimately. But anyway, this was the claim. Now, according to the Office of National Statistics, the gross contribution to the European Union from the UK in 2016 was about £363 million a week. But there's a rebate applied before the money is sent to the European Union. This was a rebate negotiated by the Thatcher government, which means that the net weekly contribution to the European Union is £267 million a week. Right. Okay. I think it's the same story on the front page of the Daily Mirror. In fact, I know it is. Let's bring in the Daily Mirror there. Here's the Mirror. Boris in 350 Boris, get your teeth in £350 million criminal lie trial. Right. Same story. This is a nonsense. This is a nonsense. I can show you this guy, I think. The guy who's behind this story. There he is. Let's make him a bit bigger. His name is Marcus Ball. And he's in the Daily Telegraph today. They're running a story on him. He's behind the bid to prosecute Boris Johnson for conduct not becoming, I suppose, of a public official. Namely that Johnson is a liar. So let me remove myself in there a bit. So the Telegraph has a less than flattering piece on this guy today. Let me read a little bit. After being thrust into the spotlight, the Canterbury University graduate, that's him there, let me get used to this, that's him there. The Canterbury University graduate was facing questions over his own behaviour. He launched the Brexit Justice campaign 3 years ago, this guy, and he's attracted nearly £430,000 in donations. And the Telegraph describes the donors as vengeful remainers, crybabies, snowflakes. We didn't win, but we're going to do everything we can to prevent the UK leaving. They want to see Johnson in court. According to the accounts, though, because this guy has published these accounts, he spent more than 50,000 of the 430,000 on himself, including a luxury flat complete with a private gym, as well as self-defense classes, hotel rooms, and even dozens of branded cupcakes. So he's got cupcakes with, I don't know, Brexit justice on them or something like that. Remainers will get their way in the end. There's a smell of Ken O'Keefe about this guy, isn't there? Oh God, Ken! Where is the One World Citizen Project? You disgusting, Jew-hating bastard, Ken! Oh, I hate Ken O'Keefe. I often say I don't hate anybody. I don't really. Despise is a better word, isn't it? Despise. So yeah, that's the guy behind this ludicrous court case, which is never going to get to court. I think it's supposed to. You see, these guys believe in politics. They believe in democracy. They believe in the system. So what they're trying to do is really destroy Johnson's Tory leadership campaign. You're going to be hearing nothing but the Tory leadership campaign on UK media in the next few weeks. And I've talked a lot about that already. I'm getting used to this now, so you've got to bear with me as I go along. Right, so that's the Metro and the Mirror, right? Was it the Mirror? What's in the Guardian today? What's in the Guardian? Right. Well, in the Guardian, they're going with Robert Mueller's statement yesterday, which I'm not going to focus too much on here this morning. I suppose it was a flurry of Trump supporters and anti-Trump people on Twitter and social media overnight arguing about whether Mueller's statement is proof that Trump didn't do anything wrong, or whether it's proof that he is a crook because Mueller didn't exactly exonerate them. That's on the front page of The Guardian there today. Also an interesting story there. Do you see it there? 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 UK spends £97 million on Brexit advisors. This will piss a lot of people off. The UK government has spent £97 million, according to The Guardian. This is a leaked report. It's always leaked. And it could reach £240 million by 2020. That's in the Guardian newspaper today. All right, I will go back to the comments in a moment, by the way. I'll go back to the comments in a moment, so bear with me. That's the Guardian newspaper today. We'll leave the Guardian alone for a minute, and we'll go to the Daily Telegraph, shall we? The Telegraph. This is really interesting, this. Tuition fees should be scrapped. Well, it should be scrapped. Should be capped at £7,500. This is the proposal, the government proposal. This is about Theresa May's legacy. May wants to leave with a legacy. And they want to cap tuition fees at £7,500 on the front page of the Telegraph. Theresa May's efforts to leave a domestic legacy before she leaves office after Trump's state visit there. Yeah, I know. I'm a bit over there, and I'm a bit over there. There he is. Is that better? Is that better? Might be a bit better. The paper suggests that it's likely that this will be adopted by May's successor. So it's a report that was commissioned by the government, which recommended capping the tuition fees at £7,500. May wants to do it before she leaves, and it's likely that her successor will honour it in an effort to get younger voters to vote for the Tories. Tuition fees, eh? Will students be foolish enough to believe a political party on the subject of tuition fees again? Remember Nick Clegg? You remember that lying bastard? Vote Lib Dems in 2010 and we'll scrap tuition fees altogether because nobody should pay for their education. Nobody should pay for their indoctrination. Now, the Times of London has a different perspective on this entirely. Let's bring up the Times then. And the Times has a different perspective on it entirely, saying graduates will pay back loans into their 60s. I'm going a bit slower than I normally do because I'm watching all this stuff on screen. So it's a different perspective. The Times is saying that although fees will be capped, changes to the way that they are repaid means that you could end up making repayments into your 60s. Many a researcher has come onto this program saying that's the plan all along. Get them into debt and keep them in debt slavery even forevermore. Because then you own them, don't you? You own them from their teenage years until their retirement years. Keep them in debt forever. Keep them in the system. Education is about indoctrination, of course. But it's also about getting people used to debt slavery. I really do believe that. That's a really interesting perspective in the Times on that story. And I haven't seen the BBC or the Sky News breakfast shows yet this AM, but I have no doubt that they've been covering that story. Also on the front page of the Times, Corbyn ally blames split on left-wing intellectuals. This is about Alastair Campbell. But we're not going to get into that because I've covered that quite a bit on the old Richie Allen radio show. Right, so that was the Telegraph and the Times. I'm sorry about this, the jerkiness of this. I'm useless. I said this before. Let's have a look at the Daily Star, because this is a very good story. And I covered this last night. Didn't I? Let me bring it in there. Let me move my big ugly mug over here. So this is John Cleese, the Monty Python Fawlty Towers legend, who has created a bit of a Twitter storm, which is still going on today by all accounts. He said that London is no longer an English city. That's what he said. Now, I get dogs abuse, which is a good thing. I like it. It means you're listening and watching. By sticking up for Cleese's right to say what he says, as I did on the radio show yesterday, I'm not endorsing him. Do you know why? I don't live in London anymore. I used to. I lived there not once, not thrice, but twice. I've lived in London. And when I lived in Brent, there weren't very many white people around. But I didn't give a shit, because that's the sort of virtue signaler I am. No, I just didn't care, right? I'm not English. I'm not British. This ain't my country. But I live here and I like living here. But Cleese said, London is no longer an English city. And he said, my friends have confirmed to me that this is true, that I'm right. And they came crawling out of the woodwork, didn't they, yesterday? Be Jesus, the virtue signalers, to signal their virtues. This is what we've been reduced to as people, going onto social media to regularly show the world that you've got the right opinions. I've got the right opinions. John Cleese is a racist arsehole. Yeah. You have to be seen to condemn people like John Cleese. I was right, says John anyway. Sticking to his guns. Stick to your guns, John. Never bow down. Never apologise for having an opinion, even if the opinion is wrong. So what about this guy then? Maajid Nawaz. Yeah, Maajid Nawaz. He's an LBC presenter who used to work for Quilliam, the extremist think tank. He's a lobbyist. Well, he used to be a lobbyist. And I will do a very special show one day on the radio about the radio presenters of the United Kingdom, whom are increasingly being drawn from a trough of politicians, political campaigners, advisors to top politicians, and lobbyists. See LBC, see Global, see Bauer Media taking over all the commercial radio stations in this country. you've got only a very narrow band now of talk radio to listen to. You used to have dozens and dozens of talk radio shows to listen to all over the country and in Ireland as well. And you got a real variety of opinions, left, right, whatever the bloody hell. Now, you've got far less talk radio programs, and they are populated by presenters who come from the corporate world, the political world, and the world of lobbying. Isn't it wonderful? It fucking isn't, is it? No, but this is what's going on. So this guy, Maajid Nawaz, had a field day talking about John Cleese yesterday. And he libelled John Cleese. He really did. I wonder is Cleese interested in cleaning the floor with Maajid Nawaz, because he really libelled him. And I know a lot about libel laws. See, I'm a real journalist. I know this pisses people off when I say this, so I'm going to keep saying it. I am a real journalist, a qualified man, qualified up to the wazoo. Meaning that I've had to undergo and undertake very many university courses on libel law, so that I don't fall into the trap of libelling somebody and getting sued to the point that I end up with no undercrackers. So this guy libelled Cleese because he effectively said that Cleese was denying people of colour their right to citizenship, or that he wasn't recognising their citizenship. Let me quote Maajid Nawaz. He said, "If you exclude from your definition of citizens of this country, of people who aren't white, you are a bigot." But John Cleese said no such thing. Cleese said no such thing at all. He just said London is no longer an English city. You see, this guy, Maajid Nawaz, would identify, I'm guessing, as a British Pakistani. I've asked some Pakistanis that I know, how do you identify? They said, well, we're British Pakistanis, Richie. Born and bred here. They have absolutely the right, as British citizens, they have the right to call themselves English as well if they want. But most of them don't call themselves English, or they don't see themselves as English. And that's okay. I haven't lurched to the right, snowflake, don't panic. I'm just calling it as I see it. So they don't see themselves as English. And maybe that's what Cleese is getting to. No, I don't know. John might be further to the right of Genghis Khan, but I don't know this. But it's an interesting one. Identity. And they were very quick yesterday to shut down callers who were saying, well, hang on a second. Cleese sees a London where white people are not as prominent as they used to be. And maybe Cleese doesn't see these people of colour as English. Hang him! Anyway, I'm not saying Cleese is right. If you were born and bred in this country, I don't care whether your parents are from Outer Mongolia. If you're born here and you see yourself as English, good for you. But most people whose parents, maybe their grandparents came from Pakistan or from India or from Sri Lanka or from wherever, don't see themselves as English. And they couldn't wait to get to Twitter to say racism, racism, racism. A bunch of fucking morons. Let's move on. Is this working, by the way, or is this the greatest load of bollocks, car crash, crap TV you've ever seen? Is it? I hope it is. Good stuff. Well, you're here, so it can't be that bad. I'm going to I suppose I'll get quicker at doing that. Shall I read a few comments? I'm sorry, I'm going to miss comments because I'm going to miss comments. Thanks to Neil Gardner for donating in the super chat. Thank you, Neil Gardner. I really appreciate that, mate. That's a lovely thing. Cerise, all right, you seem to be talking amongst yourselves there. John Cleese. English are no longer a people, it's just a language, says Smith Winston. Thanks, mate. Venus Rising says, I'm often the only white person on the bus quite frequently here in East London. Gus Althorpe says, Richie, people should worry about the City of London. They run the show. London and the City of London are separate entities. That's absolutely spot on, my friend. And I've gotten into that in the programme many's a time. Charlie Silverman, how you doing, Charlie? British is a more ancient term than English, which comes from Anglo meaning Saxon, I think. Daniel Backman says, it would be top loss if you were to phone into LBC, especially the O'Brien show. Yeah. Scottish, not British, says Kazi Barkley. How you doing, Kazi? Hi to Kelly Reid. How you doing, Kelly? And a lot of you are commenting on this stuff there. Stoned Crow says, state-mandated multiculturalism is perhaps the greatest injustice perpetrated upon the white working class of this country. Pakistanis cannot be ethnically British. It doesn't matter if they're born here. Well, ethnically British or ethnically English? British and English are two different things, I would have said. I would argue that I could agree with you that you might say, I don't see them as English. I would agree with your... Well, I would agree with your right to say whatever the bloody hell you want, full stop. But I would say, of course, they're British citizens. And they have every right to be British citizens born in the country. But English is maybe a different thing. But you can't talk about these things, can you? As John Cleese is finding out. As Danny Baker... I know Danny Baker's a different thing. He didn't realise... Yeah, we know. Hanafi Din says, Britain is an Islamic state. It's not an Islamic state, let's be honest about it. Mick Max Sporrell says, Mank living in London, frankly, if you identify English as indigenous people, he's right. Christian says, I'm here for an argument. Do you remember that? Monty Python, that was fantastic, that. And Stone Crow says, thanks Richie, I say what I want regardless. Absolutely, people should say whatever they want. I'm not worried about being called racist. Right. That's not to say that some people are not racists. We do have racists amongst us. But I don't think there are very many of them. Genuine racists. What do I think is a genuine racist? Well, a genuine racist, I think, is someone who believes that their ethnic group is morally and intellectually superior to another group. And that you think the other group is maybe somehow lesser of a human being than you. That's no dictionary definition. It's how I see racists. And I don't think there are too many of them. There are people in very difficult circumstances in their lives, and they are induced by other parties to seek scapegoats to blame for their circumstances, so that they don't look in the direction of who's really responsible for the plight they find themselves in. And I've always believed that. But they're not racist. I never saw the goons that followed Tommy Robinson around in the English Defence League. I never saw them as racist. I saw them as confused. I saw them as people with a genuine gripe, a genuine grievance, whose communities had been run down and ignored for years. And I never jumped on the bandwagon of calling them racist. I saw them as being wrong in terms of where they were looking for the person to blame, but I never saw them as racist. There's a very important story in the Daily Mail. Shall we have a look at that story? Let's have a look. Right. This is a big story, this. And I know a lot of my listeners are very interested in all matters health. Victory on pills that devastate lives of millions. Major U-turn as psychiatrists say patients must be warned of depression, drugs, risk. This is important stuff, this, in the Daily Mail today. The Daily Mail has been running a campaign on this for some time, and it's claiming, the Daily Mail, and fair enough, it ought to crow a little bit. It has been lobbying activist or activism journalism on the part of the Daily Mail here. Doctors have been told to warn millions of patients about the severe side effects of antidepressants. You know, there have been a lot of doctors on my program, good doctors, not system doctors, who have talked about psychoactive or psychotropic or antipsychotic, as well as depression medication and the damage that it does to people while they're taking it, but also while they're trying to wean themselves off it. This is really interesting, this. In a major victory for the Daily Mail, the Royal College of Psychiatrists today admits for the first time that coming off antidepressants can cause side effects that last for months. And in a move that could significantly reduce the overuse of the pills, the influential body says the potential harms of withdrawal are so serious that all patients should be warned of the risks when they are first prescribed the drugs. This is huge. This is huge. Because no longer now can a GP say, when you have the blues, for any reason, you know, life might be getting you down a bit. It gets us all down. Bereavement, the breakup of a relationship, stress at work, which I talked about. The future Mrs. Allen didn't mind me talking about this. She had a bit of a bad time of it last month before we made the move. She was in a bit of a state. Didn't last very long, God love her. I'm here for her and her friends. But it was a particularly stressful time at work because of the pile-on of pressures and deadlines and demands, and it was getting her down a bit. And the answer, or the general practitioner answer, is to take a mild sedative or to take a mild antidepressant. Of course, she didn't take an antidepressant or anything like it. But in future, they're going to have to say, listen, before I write you this script, be careful, because the drug itself could have horrible side effects, and you might be in a bit of a state when you're coming off it. Very important, I think. This is very important. And the Mail writes today, for years, health officials have played down the difficulty of withdrawing from antidepressants. Why is that? Why were doctors playing down the withdrawal effects? Why? Do you think it's because the big pharma rep that gives them all the samples might be giving them concert tickets and weekend breaks away in Amsterdam? This is true, by the way. See GlaxoSmithKline Beecham fined billions for doing that very thing, for grooming GPs to do that very thing, to keep from patients the truth about what that chemical shit that you should take to make it all go away. Of course, it never goes away. It's always there. The root cause of it is always there, drug or no drug. The Royal College is saying these side effects are severe, they are real, and GPs are going to have to be upfront about it in future. So this is a massive story in the Daily. Congratulations to the Daily Mail for putting this in the public domain. It's brilliant. They say Prozac, Cipramil and Seroxat are proven to deal with severe to moderate depression. That's nonsense. They're not proven to do any such thing. They're proven to numb you the fuck out to the point where you don't know what's going on and you're living in a fog. I know this because I've spoken to many people who've taken antidepressant or antidepressive medication. 7 million people taking this stuff in the UK in these times, in modern times. 7 million people. And as I said, Big Pharma is finding, all the time it's finding ways to medicate life. Big Pharma is taking normal life experiences, the things that we go through in life, the ups and the downs. But Big Pharma is taking the downs, labeling them and introducing a medicine for them. Honest to God. But then you know this, right? This isn't new to you. That's a brilliant bit of journalism in the Mail today, it must be said. Some 1.8 million people are at risk of severe symptoms. 25% of patients taking the drugs will find the withdrawal symptoms are horrendous and will last for, at the very least, 3 months. Don't take the shit. Just don't take it. Honestly, don't take it. Talk therapy with a really good counsellor is the way through some of the most rotten experiences you've ever had. And you're looking at a guy who's been through it. I don't get into too much detail, but I've talked briefly on my show about the things I went through as a boy. They were horrific. I'm talking domestic abuse, violence that left me in a bad way in my late teens. I didn't take any drugs. I found somebody who challenged me to face up to what I had gone through. And it was very hard, but it was very good. And I came out the other end of it able to look back on what happened and to confront it and to deal with it and to move on, not to be a victim. And to move on, to understand how it happened and how I wasn't responsible for it happening and how to face up to all of that. And that is my take on it. But I was offered drugs. As an 18-year-old, I was offered this medication, Prozac. And I said, you can go and fuck off. Not by my family doctor, by the way, who was an amazing woman, but by a psychiatrist that I was sent to. Yeah, terrible. What happened? Yeah, terrible. Yeah. Here, take this. Fuck off. Shall we leave that story behind, shall we? Shall I read some more comments? This is brutal, isn't it? This is car crash telly. I love it. Let's read some more comments, and I'm going to do one more story, and I'm going to do one. That's what I'm going to do. So look at some comments there. Is it working, is it? Or is it garbage? It's garbage, Richie. It's garbage. Sarisa Smuts on the John Cleese comments, London is not English. My Cornish mom was told by my granny not to go to London because of the white slave traffic in the 60s. So nothing much has changed, says Sarisa Smuts there. Chris Brown says, Richie, withdrawal effects of prescription drugs nearly killed me. Is that right, Chris? Wow. Sean Mack says, one of the side effects of antidepressants is suicidal thoughts. The very thing some people are actually trying to battle. Very good, Sean. Very good. And we know, don't we, that several high-profile mass shooting suspects, we learned, didn't we, that so many of them were taking antipsychotic medication. That's a coincidence, isn't it? Many of the people blamed for mass shooting incidents, we find, are taking antipsychotic drugs. Neil says, happy pills reinforce the concept that free will is just an illusion and we're only unhappy because of a hardware defect. Thanks for that, Neil. Hi to Gail. How you doing, Gail? Charlie Silverman says, bollocks. Good man, Charlie. Absolutely. Don't believe my bollocks. Just have a listen to it. Martin Hines says, good work, Richie. People need to be warned of the dangers of pill pushers. Glaxo were done, weren't they, Martin? Glaxo were done for grooming doctors. Grooming them. Bringing them out to dinners. Giving them tickets to the theatre. All of that jazz. So long as the doctors were prescribing enough of their products. Dreadful. Hi to Wide Awake Radio. Hi to Rob Anderson. Good stuff. Hi to the Moog, who says it's ethnic cleansing in London. And SGU02NSC says, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and my mental health nurse kept pushing antidepressants on me and I kept questioning why. Good for you. And in the end, I refused. Hi to Samantha Jordan. How you doing, Samantha? Regular listener to the radio show. Right. Let's do another story then, and I'm going to piss off and produce the radio show, which is a damn sight better than this old malarkey, I can tell you. Let's have a look there. Got a couple of messages yesterday saying that I'm an ugly bastard. You have to be blind, man. Supermodel over here. Mother of God. Let's go to the Telegraph. Shall we? Not the front page of it. A story in the Telegraph, which is of great interest to you and to me. Can I bring it up? Indeed I can. This is inside the Telegraph today. And I'm guessing, why is my phone dying there now? Here we are. Am I on? Because I want to see the comments. I'm guessing that the breakfast shows were full of this as well today, but I haven't heard them yet. People are now spending 50 days a year online. This is a major study by Ofcom, the broadcast regulator here in the UK, media regulator, broadcast regulator, Ofcom, the Official Communications Act. People are now spending 50 full days a year online, including a week on Facebook and a week on YouTube. Last year, adults spent an average of 3 hours and 15 minutes a day online, 11 minutes more than in 2017. Wow. The Online Nation report from Ofcom, which is the first of its kind, by the way, also revealed, I'm reading from the Telegraph obviously, that as the nation spends ever more time scrolling and browsing, people were becoming more concerned about the harm it is causing, especially to children. This is pure horse manure. Let me tell you why. Because they're not concerned about the harm being in front of a screen is doing to children who spend hours of their days and their weeks online. They're not worried about what it's doing to their mind. They're not worried about the fact that it is actually physically changing the makeup of their brains. That's not what they're worried about. They're worried about what the child might see online. Not the fact that their neural pathways are being changed, which is true. Studies have proven this. The wiring of our brains are being changed biologically by spending so much time on these. So they don't care about that. They don't want anybody to know about that. What they're saying is children are being exposed to stuff like self-harming and stuff like that online, and we've got to deal with it. The government, of course, is currently considering plans to impose a legal duty of care on tech firms to protect us all from online harms. But they want to protect us from fake news, anything they deem to be fake. And it's usually anything that is critical of what is going on. This is extraordinary stuff. And they survey people all the time. And they say, people keep coming back to them saying, yes, we want more regulation. We need more regulation. We need to be protected. Think about it. There's a couple of graphics here, I think. There is a couple of graphics. I'm going to do this all wrong again now. Hang on. Let me bring up a graphic. Or a bit more of this story. Well, there's the story. I've just read the story. 3 hours and 15 minutes a day online, 11 minutes more than 2017. And support among respondents to a poll was they wanted tighter government regulation of social media. That's brilliant. Just to protect the children. But rather than be harmed by something they might see on Twitter, the actual act of being online, of doing this, is destroying the brains of children. And it's preparing them for ultimately wearable and then implantable technology and then ultimately a transhumanist kind of post-human society. I really believe this. I know it sounds like crazy conspiracy theory, but it isn't. It's actually true. That's what they're doing. Let me get rid of that and bring this in. Oh yeah. Yi Chong Tae, a cousin of Xu Shane. Yi Chong Tae, that's real racism right there. A group director of strategy and research of Ofcom said, as most of us spend more and more time than ever online, we're increasingly worried about harmful content and also more likely to come across it. God forbid. For most people, these risks are still outweighed by the huge benefits of the internet. And while most internet users favour tighter rules in some areas, particularly social media, people also recognise the importance of protecting free speech. Yeah, they always put the caveat on. Yeah, we want tighter controls of what you can see online, but we have to protect free speech now. Lying bastards. It's all about censorship, of course. What else? Online harms, yeah. 1 in 10 children aged between 12 to 15 has seen self-harm material online. Is that right? What does that mean? People cutting their arms to make themselves bleed? I can't find any of this stuff online. So how are children finding it? They surveyed 1,000 children, and 28% of them said, yes, we've seen this stuff online, and we've also been the victims of cyberbullying. If somebody calls you something online, mute them or block them. And that's the end of it. You don't need the government to protect you. You don't need the government to say, oh, we'll stop people from calling you names. Don't need to. Just block or mute. Mute is better, because the moron doesn't know then that you're not reading their tweets. Don't block them. Mute them. Yeah, there's another one, isn't there? There's another one on this. And then we've got something from Colleen Rooney. Bit bizarre, but there you are. And this is the more worrying aspect of it. Children as young as 3 are on social media, despite age restrictions on platforms like Facebook, which they say, as you can see there, they say the minimum age is 13. You've got to be 13 to have an account. This is bollocks. Children as young as 3 are getting Facebook accounts. Who do you blame there? Do you blame Facebook? Do you blame their parents? Yeah. And there's a graph there of age groups with online profiles, which you can see there on screen. So I'm a radio presenter and a nosy Parker who likes to hear people's opinions on things. Terrific researchers have done extraordinary work on what exposure to smartphone technology is doing to children. And it's not just the Wi-Fi exposure and the non-ionizing radiation exposure of that bollocks. That's bad enough. But what it's doing to them, preparing them for the hive mind, for the Internet of Things, and for the push to the transhumanist society. That's what it's all about. So it's funny, this Ofcom report is saying dangerous for children to be online, not because it's completely changing the physical makeup of their brains, but because they might see something that might harm them. Therefore, we must come in and take over. And that's what they're doing. The Daily Mail did something on this. I can bring you a picture, can't I? Of the Daily Mail has focused on the family of Wayne Rooney. This might be a bit unfair. Why Colleen Rooney's family photo showing her 3 children glued to their iPads should be a wake-up call for all parents. This might be a bit unfair because the children have iPads, but we don't know how long they get to play with their iPads. And I don't know if the Daily Mail endeavoured to find out by maybe contacting Colleen Rooney. Say, Colleen, they're out in this lovely park area. Why are they on their iPads? Couldn't they be doing something a bit, could they be making Lego blocks or something? Or playing with a ball or playing with marbles. Do you remember that? Marbles? Why are they on their iPads? But it's a picture that you see all the time. The iPad, this isn't an iPad. The phone has kind of replaced the pacifier or the dummy, as we say in the UK and in Ireland. It's replaced the pacifier as a means of keeping children quiet, making children shut the fuck up, basically. So there was a bit of controversy on Twitter about this. There was a Twitter storm. Colleen Rooney was called a bad parent, which is an outrage. It's an outrage to call anybody a bad parent. I'm sure Colleen Rooney is as good a parent as anybody else. But it's an awful picture, that. I don't mean her children. I mean, I've been... Caroline and myself go all over the northwest, and we go east to some of the wonderful parks and lakes and rivers that this country has, just like my country. And we do see a lot of children in beautiful wooded areas with deer present, lovely deer. And they're glued to these. And it's a terrible thing. But it's wrong to have a go at Rooney. I'm using the picture as a kind of an analogy. There you are. You do see that quite a lot. And I just wish that more parents knew that there are surveys out there that say the screen time is having a physiological effect on your child. Not just what they might see on there, which is bad enough. But the radiation and the, what exposure through the eyes is doing to the brains of young, not yet developed minds and brains, physical brains. So that's about it for the papers today then. I want to keep this to about 30 minutes every day because I've got an awful lot to do producing the Richie Allen radio show. Let me get rid of that. Let me go full screen again. And if I can, and let me read one or two more comments and I will bid you good day. Thanks again for the last time to Graham and to Hayden for getting me into this. Anthony Patch as a guest. I'm open to listener suggestions for guests. I often get guests through listener suggestions. Kelly Reed says, Richie, my 6-year-old is only allowed 30 minutes on her iPad per day, but she had to do 2 pages out of her mathematics book first. I say per day, but she inevitably loses the privilege for not listening, says Kelly. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, because I have no doubt that children can use those things in moderation and it won't be harmful if they're getting a half an hour, 20 minutes or whatever. I agree with that. But spending hours on it, it's dangerous. Hi to Elizabeth McFall. How you doing, Elizabeth? If I didn't say hello to you, hi to Sean Griffith, who says, my kids play outside come rain or shine. Thanks, Sean, for that. Lord Branstey is on top of Ben Nevis right now. Must be lovely. You must have some view there, my friend. Must be fantastic. And to everybody else who sent a message there, I really appreciate that. Thank you for that. And Jennifer there listening in on the east coast of the US in Florida there. Right, that's it. I love you and leave you. That was the newspaper review for May 30th, 2019. I'll be back at 5 o'clock where I'll be joined by Chris Busby, the scientist, and he will be talking about 5G because he's put a YouTube video online and it's very interesting and I want to talk about that. And the brilliant Neil Sanders of Neil Sanders Mind Control will be on the programme to talk about the financing of the right. He's done extraordinary work, brilliant work on this. Who's financing the alt-right and Nigel Farage and all of this? So Neil Sanders will be on the programme as well. So it's a packed old programme this Thursday. I'll see you at 5. It's live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple channels, Fab Radio 2, triggerwarning.tv. And remember, fabradiointernational.com. Impresario Paul Ripley, top man, has a schedule packed with fantastic programmes in every genre. Check it out, fabradiointernational.com. And triggerwarning.tv, check that out as well. Graham and Hayden uploading daily really interesting material on all subjects. So check that out as well. Until the radio show at 5, it is bye from me. Goodbye. See you later. Bye.